Thank you very much. It's awesome to be here.
I'm taking my thing away.
I was going to put my name in that thing 80 times. Good thing you took it away.
5 times.
All right. Hello, everybody. A little bit kind of like, I guess, jet lagged. I got in at 2:30 last night. She mentioned the Little League. We're in the playoffs, and we never get in the playoffs. I coach the 10-year-olds. I'm the head coach, and so I went from the game to the airport to get here at 2:30, and I'll leave shortly after my talk to get to the plane to change in my car to get to the game today. So if I'm not around, sorry about that. You can email me. You can Facebook me. You can't let 12, 10-year-olds down. They'll eat you alive. You know, and talk about playing and doing sports with the kids. I just got into snowboarding with my youngest. He's already kicking my butt. The first time I went out with him, I broke 2 ribs. You know, fantastic, right? You know, I love this stuff, right? Come on, Dad. Come on, Dad. I think I'm really dying on this thing. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I love the kids, and they keep you young, right? They keep you active and everything. All right, here we go. We're going to talk about the 4-letter F word, fast. I learned this the hard way. I worked for 3 years on different programs of what's called population health. Population health, not public health. Population health deals with large populations of individuals, usually working at one company. So large companies would hire the company I worked with. My best friend started it and has grown it from a spinal screening company to a $110 million company now. They cover 1.5 million lives, 250 companies. And so a company would contract them, and then they would get a biometric questionnaire where they would get kind of scores on different parts of their health and life. And then based on those scores, they would be recommended different things to do, different challenges. And if they did them, like the walking challenge or water drinking challenge or the sleep challenge or whatever it is, they'd get points. Based on those points, they would get a score that would reduce their insurance costs, or they'd get some kind of prize or some kind of swag or something like that. So that's what a population health company manages, those type of things. And so I came in and I went in and I rebooted all their different programs. We did weight loss programs, mood and food, fast fitness, desktop yoga, and then we did metabolic syndrome. And then the big one that I designed from the beginning, was a diabetes prevention program. It's basically an advanced metabolic weight loss concept that very similar to what we're doing. And I had to go to these companies and present it to them so that they would buy it. And these companies some of them are up to 130,000 employees in these, or 10,000, 50,000, big companies. So they had their whole board of people, medical doctors, PhDs, dietitians, and they would sit there. And I learned after about 4 or 5 of these meetings of getting my teeth kicked in of what I could say and I couldn't say. How I could say it, what I could emphasize. I go in there talking about fasting. Get out. You're out. They just shut right down. You can't say fasting at all. So we would say rotational meal timing. Right? Other things you couldn't say were things like high-intensity training, high-intensity interval training. The first thing they think of is CrossFit. You're going to kill all our people. And so I taught them about variable output exercise. Very different. We couldn't go in and say high fat because, man, that's a killer right there. High fat, you can't do it. So we go in there and we became fat conscious. And we talked about smart fats and things like that. So we learned really quick. Well, not quick enough. We did lose some things there. How to present this, and I really got the emphasis that fasting is just something that they are afraid of on an institutional level, big time. And no reason for it. They have no backing to do it. But fast is a 4-letter F word. So if you go in and you start to network and work with other groups, be ready for that and learn some different terminology. It might help. It definitely helped me, right? How I got into fasting, I fell into it backwards, pretty much on accident. Years ago, I lived in Costa Rica with my family for 8 years. Just when I first got out of school, went down there, we worked with the Costa Rican Olympic teams and the Central American teams and the Pan American teams, the Caribbean teams. We had a great time. We worked with the Costa Rican Medical School, and we introduced some rural outreach for the WHO there. Had a great experience, 8 years. And as I was there, having a great time, living in the tropical paradise, eating all the tropical foods, at 2 different points in that time, I was told I had cancer. Okay, I was told I had cancer. One time, I had a medical doctor. He was my exam doc on my staff. We were at a summer party, which in Costa Rica is for Christmas, right? Summer down there, right? So we're at the pool party at Christmas, which is fun, right? And he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, doc, you got to come to my office when we get back into the office next week. I got to talk to you." I'm like, "Oh, great, he's gonna quit, right?" No, turns out he's seen something on my back. He saw one of my moles was very ugly, and he wanted to examine it, and he did. And he told me, he's like, "Look, this is cancer. I'm pretty sure. You need to do this, and this." I said, "Thank you very much, Dr. Bo." And I did my own thing. I never got it biopsied, so I can't say what it was. I do know it was a lesion. I do know it was not normal, and it was there. Later on, a couple years later, similar thing happened. I ate some bad seafood, and I got a bad rash. So I went to a dermatologist to make sure it's not contagious, so I don't infect all my patients and so on. And she said, "No, the rash is fine, everything's good, but that mole on your neck," I know. I said, "It's been bothering me a little bit. You know, my moles do some funny things now and then." She's like, "That's a problem. That's cancer." And the same thing. I didn't get it biopsied. I didn't do anything medically as far as that goes. So I don't know what it was. I know it was reacting bad, and it was a lesion, and something was going on. That really hit me hard. My dad's a chiropractor. My uncle, my aunt, my cousin, my sister, my wife, my daughter's in school right now. I grew up in this. I've never been vaccinated. I've never had a prescription medication. I've never had an antibiotic. So this shouldn't happen to me, right? We eat organic. We eat off the trees in our neighborhood. Never mind organic. We go to the beach. We catch the fish. You know, never mind organic, right? A farm over there is going into the lagoon, a fish farm, right, and catching those. So I was really shocked, and it really hit me hard. I didn't know what to think. How is this happening to me? And so I went through this whole process, and I started diving in, and I wanted to know, because if it's happening to me, how is the average person out there getting through this? What chance do they have? And if it happened to me, how do I stop this from happening to my kids? I thought I was raised pretty healthily, right? And I think I'm raising my kids pretty healthily. I want to make sure I stop any progression that's going on. And so I started looking at all these different things, and I said, "Look, we're already doing a lot of different health stuff. All I got to do is tighten up my ship and get real strict, get to it." So I started up the exercise, did some different variations in that, cleaned up the diet even more. Eventually went to vegetarian at the time. Eventually went to fruitarian. Eventually started fasting, and eventually over 6 months, those lesions got a little bit uglier in the beginning. And they came to the surface, and they fell off. Both times. Not even a scar. I still have this mole. You know, I'll watch it every now and then. Keep an eye on that sucker. But it doesn't even have a scar. The one on my back does have a scar. And I had a mole fall off my face. I had a skin tag fall off. I had these different changes go on. And that's what happened. Listen, this impacted me so much, I didn't even tell my wife about these issues until well after. I was ashamed. I'm supposed to know something. This is not supposed to happen to me, yet it did. So it really drove into me a desire and a passion to learn about these processes and figure out how I can stop it for myself and for my kids, and then share it with everyone else. And that's where it came from. Okay? And so that's how I kind of backed my way into fasting. Back then, there wasn't a lot of resources. Joe Furman mentioned he had a book, I think it's back from 1994. It's now 25 years old, on fasting. And it's excellent. He is a vegan, super low fat, type of guy, but, keep an open mind, right? We do that. I was there once. I used to teach that in my office. But in that book, he talks about long fasting, people who've been doing these big long fasts for health benefits for 30 years at that point, 25 years ago. Great resource. So I read through that, and I did some different things, and I kind of just did my own way, and that's how I got into it. Now, you fast forward, we did 8 years in Costa Rica, 2 years in Spain, and then we came back to the States after 10 years out of the country with our kids now a little bit bigger, because I have 3 kids, each born in a different country, That's my retirement plan. I'll get their citizenship if I get in trouble, right? Get out of here. But all born at home, all born at home. So that's a fun part. That's another fun story. And so we come back, we get the kids in school, and man, the impact hit me really hard. Everything has changed. The kids were way out of shape. They were overweight. They had all these problems. There was a peanut table over here. There was this table over here. There was wristbands. And I was blown away. I'd been out of it for so long. Then we went to the PTA meeting to get some more information. I realized why. Look at the parents. It was a whole big problem. So we started going into more wellness, and that's when we expanded our practice. I was a strict upper cervical chiropractic, B.J. Palmer, knee chest style. Very, very specific. I said, I got to do more. And so we put a gym in there. We got a massage therapist, a wellness psychologist. I started learning nutrition. Where did I learn it? Systemic and Dr. Pompa. My first exposure, it was in New York at a one-day event with Jack Tips and Dr. Pompa, and that's where I got indoctrinated. That's where I got the taste. That's where I was like, oh, there's something more to be going on here. And I dove in, and I brought it into the practice, and we started doing really well, and we started having a lot of success with metabolic issues. Didn't know exactly why at that point. We kept evaluating it. And then my friend who started that population health company, he came to the practice. He said, this is fantastic. You're getting such great results with these people one-on-one, face-to-face. Do you think you can do this on a population level? I said, I have no idea. He said, do you want to find out? I said, sure, let's try. And so that's what got me to Seattle, and that's what got me into the population health, and that's what got me to dive into the research. Before, it was very clinical, very anecdotal. But now that I had to face those boards with the 4-letter F word that were throwing me out, I had to come in there stacked. I had to know everything that they could possibly ask, have it backed up, have it ready, hundreds if not thousands of studies and different references. I had to come, and that's what really started to expand my thinking and really got me into it to know even more and to start to teach us more because it all makes sense eventually, not always at the beginning. Okay? You guys ready for this? You guys got a new clicker here. It's different. All right, maybe not. There we go. Here's what I want to cover today. Types of fasting and why. How to prepare for a fast. Exercise while fasting. Breaking the fast. Prolonged fasting. Ketone supplement in use. Lifestyle and fasting. And then fasting side effects. How many people use any kind of fasting? Whether intermittent fasting, meal timing, window, block fasting? Great. How many people don't who would like to? Looks just about everyone else, all right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. That's fantastic. So as I ask questions and as I go through these topics, there's spaces for notes in your notes. If I ask questions, answer them, all right? Got that? Got that? Got these people who are doing it? I saw you raise your hand, so I know who you are now, okay? So good. So we're going to go through this. Types of fasting. What do we got? How many different types of fasting are there? Intermittent fasting. We went over that. Most people consider skipping breakfast intermittent fasting. The old fasting people, intermittent fasting is anything from 3 days to 20 days. Not skipping breakfast. That, watch my Facebook post. I get a little pissy about that. I'm like, intermittent fasting. Okay. Oh, yeah, I do fasting. I do intermittent fasting. Oh, you mean you skip breakfast? Oh, I'm sorry. But I'm not going to get into that. It's my issue. Alternate day fasting. This came out, this is big. Krista Varaday wrote the book, The Every Other Day Diet. Alternate day concepts, fantastic. Whether you do intermittent fasting or other, by creating that variation that we talked about, big benefits. Fasting mimicking, Dr. Pompa went all through that. The fasting mimicking diet where you do very low calories, 500 or less, and you mix that in different days, and you put that into your regime. That's great. Dry fasting. What's that? No water. Yeah, I haven't got much into that, so I don't have much to say about that. Juice fast. How many people hear that? Oh, I fast all the time. I do juice fast. Or I do the master cleanse. Yeah, not a fan. I'm definitely not a fan of those. But that's the type of fast you'll run into out there. Water fasting is what we've been talking about. Block fasting is putting multiple days together. And then pseudo-fasting. Pseudo-fasting is actually very similar to fasting mimicking. It was done in diabetes research in Europe. And it was actually shown that through this type of fasting, they could regenerate beta cell mass and insulin output in diabetic mice. It's the only thing I've ever seen that actually could measure in type 2 diabetes. They could measure the pancreas, and they could show a beta cell mass increase. It was rejuvenating, and the insulin function was coming back. And in type 2 diabetes, some of the insulin function came back so strong, it beat the control group who were not type 2 diabetic. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right? Fat fasting. That's kind of what we call the ketogenic diet. That's what we used to call it back before it was the ketogenic diet, right? Just like the paleo. We call that the basic human eating plan back in the day, And then every now and then we wanted you to do a fat fast. And then now it's paleo and keto, so on and so forth. So why fast at all? What are we doing this for? Insulin, that's my baby. I love insulin. In my world, all roads lead to insulin. So if I ask a question you don't know, good answer is insulin. And if it's not right, I'll still like it because that's my baby. All right? And health benefits. They go hand in hand, but I like to separate them. So on the insulin side, we have hormones because insulin is the ultimate hormonal disruptor. Insulin is a bully on the playground messing around with every other hormone there is. Very aggressive. Very aggressive. Weight loss. Why? Because there's at least 8 fat-burning hormones that we know of. There's only one fat storing, one fat loss blocking hormone, and that is insulin. Man, you guys are so quick. Okay? And then there's an insulin-resistant spectrum that we'll go on to and how it affects chronic disease. Now, health benefits. We're going to go into insulin and mTOR. Dr. Pompa set me up very nicely for mTOR. I like to say mTOR is to protein what insulin is to carbs. Right? Fair enough? mTOR is to protein what insulin is to carbs. When you eat carbs and other things, but we'll mention carbs. When you eat carbs, insulin goes up. Growth will go into a growth state, and you have all these different effects. When you eat protein, it does stimulate insulin, but the main thing it stimulates is mTOR, and you get the same effects. And we'll talk about that. Okay? And then integration, stem cell production, which is a great lead-in already. Integration and preservation of those stem cells that we make. I'll go into that. So insulin. The insulin-resistant spectrum is on one side. That's basically the spectrum of disease. And the other side, that's more colloquial, is weight loss. Okay? Here's the spectrum. You can take a look. This is insulin at the center of it all. Okay? Keystone. Is that a beer? Right? So, starting back here, starting with hormone issues, insulin dysregulation, high insulin exposure, beginning of insulin resistance, and it goes down the spectrum, inflammation, weight gain. Then you hit some detectable zones of pre-diabetes. I say that's anything over 86 in a fasting blood sugar. Pre-diabetes, 100 to 124. Type 2 diabetes which is down here, which is 125 or higher. The metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome used to be called syndrome X. And you need 3 out of 5 different characteristics for that. Do you know what they are? What are they? High fasting blood glucose. Well, high LDL, right? High triglycerides. Low HDL. And an increased waistline. Over 35 for women, over 40 for men. Depending on, now they're saying 2, but the traditional model is any 3 of those 5, and you're considered having metabolic syndrome. You're on the spectrum, right? I'm getting beeped out. I didn't say anything bad, right? Not yet. All right, and so as you go to further and further down, it leads to type 2 diabetes. Heart disease is now known as a cardiometabolic issue. The insulin factor of heart disease, insulinogenic, and then type 3 diabetes now is Alzheimer's and so forth. And you can put cancer on there. I don't know if we're allowed to say that or whatever. I know there's some limits. But it's on there because now we know there's a book by Seyfried, Dr. Pompa mentioned, called Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. Anytime you hear metabolic, you're thinking hormones, you're thinking insulin, right? And that leads to reduced lifespan. We know that clear and clear because, even just take type 2 diabetes. If you're diagnosed at 40 with type 2 diabetes, whether you're a man or a woman, you're going to lose 12 to 14 and a half years off of your life, statistically. Reduction of your life. 12 to 14 and a half years. That's a wedding. That's a graduation. And the last 10 years of that life is miserable, painful, difficult, expensive, right? Trying, very hard. Okay, and along the line, that's what we're talking about, the different difficulties. You start to see neuropathies, retinopathy, chronic pain, inflammation, amputations, decreased quality of life, all that puts us back, cycles us back to this spectrum again and creates that vicious cycle that we see over and over and over. And that's why medicine says these problems are chronic, degenerative issues. Because if you manage them, they'll never go away. In their model, there is no reversing. In their model, it's absolutely a fact. But outside their model, we know we can go back down this spectrum very, very quickly usually, and hopefully very permanently. You with me? Want to do that? Let's do that. Okay, and here's a big one. Here's the weight loss side of things. Calories in, calories out. This argument gets me in more trouble on Facebook than almost anything else. Almost anything else. Calories in, calories out, especially the gym people. They love to fight me on, the second law of thermodynamics, and They call me an idiot on YouTube and stuff like that. And I go, okay, man. Delete, block, you're out. Okay? So here's the deal. They say calories in, calories out. There's a balance. You got less calories than you need. You lose weight. You got more calories. You go over. You put on weight. The problem is, like Dr. Pompa mentioned, in the biosphere and other studies that we used to be able to do, like on prisoners and medical students, that we can't do anymore. Too bad. They did these things. They could really regiment their eating, and they could never get this equation to work out. They would cut their calories to a predictable amount, and therefore you should lose X, Y, Z. They didn't. Some did. Some didn't. Some lost more. Some didn't. Some gained even. Or they would overfeed people up to 10,000 calories a day, basically force feed them. And they would calculate you should gain this much weight. They didn't. Very sporadic. Some did, some didn't. Some lost weight. Crazy stuff all over. It doesn't work. Like Dr. Pompa mentioned with the wood, I like to use a bank account as my analogy. Calories are an economy, right? It's a budget in your body. It's a budget, and your budget is set. If you're getting paid $2,000 a month right now, and you're living your life on $2,000 a month, which is the calories in, and suddenly I take $500 a month away, what's going to happen? How long can you keep spending $2,000? Not long. You might be able to pull some from savings, but that's going to cause a problem. So what do you end up doing? You end up spending less. And that's what we see in the model of low-calorie dieting, because it's constant, number one, every day. Anything you do every day, all the time, is trouble. The body likes variables, right? Up and down. And number two, they eat multiple meals and multiple snacks throughout the day, usually low-fat. That's the model, right? So they're stimulating insulin chronically, even with lower calories, and they've cut their budget back, so they're spending less, and so the metabolism goes down. And eventually, they might lose some weight on that, because remember, you take from your savings for a little while until you stop spending so much, right, in your life. So does the body. And then so they lose a little bit of weight. Usually it's between 8 and 12 pounds on an average diet model, right? And then what do? They're like, oh, I'm stalled out. I don't like this. What do? They cut back again, right? Cut back again, I'll go down to 1,200 calories. Same thing, can't keep spending, and the whole cycle keeps going, mainly because of insulin on there, because insulin is a fat-storing hormone, and is a hormone that stops you from losing fat. So now what it's doing is you're spending less, you're getting less in your money, right? You're getting $1,200, not $2,000, right? So you're spending less, but now insulin has blocked you from being able to touch your reserves. You can't get to your savings account. You can't get to this, or wherever you got your money, so to speak, right? So I got money everywhere. So, and so that causes a problem, and they start to go, and then they create this tremendous problem. And so what we know now is not about the calorie ratio, and it's about not the daily effort. It comes down to the hormonal influence. Hormonal influence. And insulin is the main hormone. Insulin controls it all. Insulin controls the bank account, controls the budget, does the whole 9 yards. And so when you shift your lens from calories to insulin, the whole playing field changes. We want to go through that. Make sense? Yeah, all right. Whereas you can eat the same amount. That's why people can eat more. And as long as you drop that insulin, they won't gain weight. They can actually lose weight. I work with a lot of people who come, like you do, that are sick, and they're in the 1,200, 1,500 calorie range already. They've been doing it because they've done Jenny Craig, other named weight loss programs. Probably shouldn't say that either. And they're in that model. And then the first thing I tell them, you got to eat more. They go, whoa. And part of that is you got to eat more fat. And so you get them eating more. You just cut out the snacks. You cut out the frequency. You don't eat less often. And guess what starts to happen? Body starts to change, right? Body starts to change. That's why. All right. And here you can take a look. Here is fat breakdown, okay? And here's insulin. Look, fat breakdown is a reduction of insulin levels, okay? As insulin goes up, what happens to fat breakdown? Right down to the bottom, right? Small reductions in insulin within the physiological range are associated with large increase in lipolysis and fat burning. So when we had these population health studies, these aren't people who found me and want to pay me a bunch of money and they're really motivated to do. They want to get a swag. They want to get a sweatshirt from their company. They want to get $20 off their insurance thing a week, right? So how motivated are they? Not too, right? Some of them in our programs, all they did is stop snacking and shift to 3 meals a day. And guess what happened? They started burning more fat. They started losing weight. In our program, we didn't get paid if they didn't lose the weight. So we were kind of motivated to teach them some things, right? But they weren't that motivated to do it, so we had to keep it easy, right? And so just by shifting that, a lot of them, some people lost over 20, 30 pounds over 8 to 12 weeks just by not snacking. And these are basic people, right? One woman that called in and I was coaching, she goes, Doc, I'm ready for this. I already eat pretty healthy. Every morning I eat vegetables and juice for my breakfast. I'm like, awesome, Mary, that's a good start. Tell me about that. What do you eat? Well, when I get to work, I go to the vending machine and I buy me some Funyuns and a Mountain Dew. And she was serious. Funyuns, you know what those are? I had to look them up. They're not fun. They're not even food. They're not even vegetables. They're rings, right? Funyuns. And Mountain Dew, that's the juice. So if we can work just by making small shifts and people that are at that point, imagine someone who's motivated coming into you that needs to change their life can do. That's what we're talking about. That's how we make a huge shift. But take a look at this. There's more to it. It's not just insulin as a gross number. You have to look at their overall metabolic state and their weight and metabolic history. Because look at this here. This is insulin levels, okay? This is thin or lean person. This is what it, quote unquote, supposed to do. Okay? When insulin should go up, come down. But just for the fact of being overweight, it's ironic. This study, see this? This is an overlay. I had to write that. Because in the study there was a caption here, but they called them fat people. I was like, how absurd is that? You know? Terrible. But the obese here, they start with a higher level of insulin, and when they stimulate insulin, it goes through the roof. So you need to know their health history, because what happens is whatever your fasting insulin is in the morning as a baseline, if you're overweight or obese, that can raise up to 7 times every time you eat. Right? So if you're, like medicine says, fasting insulin can be up to 25 and be normal, be healthy. Not true. So say you're in that normal range and you got a 15, which I don't think is normal, and it goes up every time you eat, it goes up 7 times, right? It goes up to 105. It's peaking up there at 105 for insulin. Whereas if you're working on this, or you're lean, or you're on an insulin-friendly program, your insulin level might be, 3? If you're real good. But that goes up 7 times too, potentially, depending on what you eat. Now you're up at 21. You're still under the medical norm. Big difference, right? And that's what we see here. So we have to take that in consideration. So when people say obesity leads to disease, I don't know about that. But obesity has a direct effect in it because of the way it stimulates what? Insulin. All right, fasting to heal. Insulin and mTOR. Again, mTOR is to protein what insulin is to carbs. That's the main thing. That's what we really want to take away here. And here's how they work. They work together. This is the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. Sympathetic is supposed to rev us up. Parasympathetic is supposed to calm us down. We say rest and digest, right? For that. This is the parasympathetic branch right here. But the parasympathetic branch has 2 sides too, as well. Growth or repair. Not growth and repair. They're not the same. It's growth or repair. Okay? When one goes up, the other goes down. And on the side of growth, you got insulin. It's anabolic. That's why the weightlifters use it all the time. I go, yeah, it's anabolic, but to fat cells. Right? Just like testosterone. You take testosterone, my bones don't grow. It's not anabolic to bone. It's anabolic to muscle. Right? You take insulin. I can make anybody on a low-calorie diet, you can make them really fat. All you have to do is inject insulin. And they'll put on fat if you give them enough, right? You just know that. So it's anabolic to fat. mTOR is anabolic to muscle. That's why it interacts with the human growth hormone and testosterone. Okay? Testosterone, IGF-1. On the other side of that teeter-totter is repair. This is where we want to be. A lot of people, especially in the gym, that say, I want growth, I want growth, right? What they really want is repair. I want to repair. I want to rebuild, okay? And that's vitamin D is over there. That's a big one. Glucagon, human growth hormone. Believe it or not, cortisol at normal levels is part of repair. People say, oh, it's the stress hormone. It's really the anti-stress hormone. It's cortisol, inflammation. No, it's anti-inflammatory. If I blow my shoulder, what do they inject it with? Prednisone, which is synthetic cortisol. Adrenaline, okay? These should be cyclic and balanced. But what happens is when we stimulate insulin by eating multiple meals, multiple snacks a day, poor quality choices, Funyuns and Mountain Dew, or mTOR, overdoing it like the bodybuilders, Dr. Pompa mentioned, they don't live as long. It's not 63. It's 59. Morbidly obese live to 58. Right? It's very comparable. The problems they have. Why? This is morbidly obese. This is bodybuilder, powerlifter, weightlifter. Okay, you might look good for 15 years, but you just took 15 years off the end of your life. Yeah, what happens to patients that are in sympathetic dominance? I'm not a big fan of that term. I think when we see what we think is sympathetic dominance, it's not sympathetic dominance, it's parasympathetic insufficiency. This is being held down like a head underwater. Therefore, it's like in your car, brakes and gas. You don't have to be going 1,000 miles per hour to wreck your car. You could be going 10 miles per hour, but you have no brakes. You're going to beat that thing up every day for a long time, and that's what we see in chronic disease, right? That's not always one crash. It's the ding, dang, bing, bang, things falling off as we go. So that's what I think it is. So I don't necessarily, at least at first, until I know it's sympathetic dominance, work on that side. We work to pump up this side. Get that head out of the water, and as that comes up, usually this starts to improve. You can see it a lot with things like HRV, heart rate variability studies, and stuff like that. Blood pressure is a good one. And then if it really still sticks, then you can start working on it. This is how I look at it. Cool? We still friends? Okay, good. Just checking. All right, so you see how that works? Parasympathetic, sympathetic, within that, because even within sympathetic there's a balance, but that's a whole other side. All right. Check this out. This is the cell, membrane, nucleus. My two favorite organelles in here. I know Shane likes one of them over here, Dr. Morris. The endoplasmic reticulum and the mitochondria. Okay? Huge. That's the big battle of big battle of life within each cell is between, in my opinion, between those guys. One is energy production, the other is sustainability. Sounds like global issues, doesn't it? Energy production and sustainability. As it is on the inside, it is on the outside. It is a fractal model here, big time. And so, we're always working on, like Dr. Pompa said, the fitness of the mitochondria. And here, this is where we recycle, repair. This has a lot to do with the autophagy, because that's where the repair goes through, and picking up the fragments and folding and so on. So these are big issues, but I'll go another talk. What I want to show here, okay, here we go. We're talking about mTOR. Check it out. The study here is what it's saying here, if you can't read it, it's in your notes. It says the ratio of macronutrients, fats, proteins, carbs, the ratio of those guys, not caloric intake, dictates cardiometabolic health, aging, and longevity, and so forth. The balance, how many carbs, how many protein, how many fats, not the amount. It's not calories in, calories out, because each one of those has a regulator. Insulin is for carbs. mTOR is for, and fat has who? Leptin, but that's, again, another topic. All right. mTOR signaling in growth control and disease, talking about very similar role as insulin. Long-term effects of calorie or protein restriction. Calorie or protein restriction. We'll come back to that. mTOR signaling, again, cardiometabolic health, cancer, and aging. This is a player. This is a major player, so much so that it's suggested that reduced protein intake may become an important component of anti-cancer and anti-aging dietary interventions. Some studies show that it may be more important to limit protein than it is carbs. It may be more important to limit protein in the mTOR signal than it is overall caloric intake. We see benefits from dropping protein similar to that of dropping overall calories, as in fasting. Really neat stuff. So it's a player. It's a player. Okay, fasting to heal. Dr. Pompa did great. Autophagy, breaking down of these cells. Here's the model here. Autophagy is run by the gatekeeper, mTOR. mTOR decides whether we are in an autophagenic, I don't know. If we're experiencing autophagy or not. And you can see through here, there's different models online. You can see how it breaks it up. But you can see proteins or other macromolecules, because of the way it plays with insulin, affect autophagy, which breaks down amino acids, and it does it for a lot of different reasons. You see it's in response to endoplasmic reticulum stress. You see it protein control, organelle degradation, microorganism degradation, big deal. We're talking threat and adaptation, like Dr. Pompa said. Survival risk, gluconeogenesis, all over the board here. So if you start pumping up mTOR, it shuts off autophagy. Okay, you pump up insulin, it doesn't necessarily shut off autophagy, but it'll bring mTOR with it, and that'll shut off autophagy. Right? They're buddies. They're buddies. Okay. See how that works? All right. That's why you drop protein enough over time, mTOR doesn't get expressed, autophagy gets going, and you see a similar effect to overall caloric restriction. Okay, fasting to heal, stem cell production. Dr. Pompa mentioned losing protein or losing muscle when you start to fast. That is genius. Not a problem. And there's a reason why it only happens for a couple days. That process creates the inflammation or the damage of the breakdown of the protein to initiate the autophagy, to initiate the stem cell reduction to replace them. Right? You know, everyone remember Cheers? Yeah, they used to have those great conversations at the bar. And they say, oh, alcohol kills brain cells. And what did Norm say? But only the weak ones. Right? Survival of the fittest, he said. Right? Same thing. As this happens, when you start to fast, you trigger a breakdown of muscle, but the bad stuff. We need to make a choice here, and that was what will stimulate the repair that we want from the other slide, that we want from that experience from the stem cell to make these cells and these tissues stronger and better. There has to be a signal. Why would a stem cell go and become a muscle cell if there was no need? If they didn't start the breakdown first? Very smart stuff. And that's why it stops after a while. The body doesn't, like Dr. Pompa, the body doesn't want to burn protein. It wants to stimulate repair and new protein to be into your muscle. Using the cabin analogy, it's like saying, okay, you're in a cabin, you're in the woods, and it's coming for winter. You stockpile the wood. Same picture, right? Same picture. That's your fat. Okay, that's your fat, and it gets really cold, right? And so the body starts to shift. And you start using the wood for heat. And when you're fasting, it's like saying, I'm in that house, it's cold, but instead of burning that fat, I'm going to burn my furniture for fuel. That's our protein. I'm going to burn the structure of the house for protein when you have that whole wood pile out there. It doesn't make any sense. So if you ever see any of that kind of change, like the first couple of days of fasting, there's a reason for it. Make sense? Go too far on that one? No? All right, good. I know my wife would if I did the decorating. You know. All right, welcome to it. I think I got it from Dr. Fung, to be honest. You know. So that's the process. We want that to happen. And then they can go on. We tested people on even DEXA scan, but different bioimpedance type of scans, and people don't lose protein mass. Muscle mass. Not until later in the fast, and usually only if they're exercising, like I did in my 30-day fast. I learned that hard way on me. After 14 days, I wasn't planning on doing 30 days. I did a 3-day fast. I turned into a 5. I turned into a 7, and so on. And we have powerlifting teams at the time, and I was max lifting. And I was doing high-intensity training. I was doing max squats and deadlifts. No reduction in strength. But eventually, bam, the muscle started to drop. But it's okay, it came back. It's not gone forever. It comes back. It's not like the muscle is gone. It's just part of the fiber. Not the fibers, the volume. There we go. And we can see this is the model. When those stem cells are produced, they can go just about anywhere. You'll see in another slide, there's over 300 different tissues that are known to receive these stem cells and incorporate them into their structure, be it bone, muscle, organs, and so forth. And we've definitely seen it in the pseudo-fasting in the pancreas to actually restore. Only 1% of the pancreas is dedicated to insulin. 1%, right? Very little. And fasting can really target that stuff. The other 99% mostly has to do with what? Anyone know? Yeah, enzymes. Which is part of the reason I think when you work with people and they lose a lot of weight, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, you get them to lose 60 to 100 plus pounds, 3-5 years later, almost all of them crash with pancreatitis. Almost all of them. And I was like really surprised if they kept the weight off. They put the weight back on is a whole different story. And I think it's because even as we're looking at insulin, we're killing that enzymatic response. So one of the things we test early on with people is their stomach acidity. If they have poor stomach acidity, that means they're going to use more enzymes. It's a huge connection. A lot of times we can see stomach acid issues before we see insulin issues. It's a good early detector. They go hand in hand. And the good way to see that is on Dr. Jack Tipp's body system questionnaire that I bought years ago and I use every day. They're on the same page. All right, here's the model. Stem cell production. It can go to over 300 different tissues in the body, all over the place. One of the best places to look for research on this is in the brain for neurogenesis, because we used to think that brain cells can't regenerate or we can't produce new ones. We've known for a while about neuroplasticity, new connections, right? But now we can get new cells in there. New cells. That's a big deal. And so there's a lot of good research in there. And then also it's what promotes healing, true healing. Not just like scar and covering up type of healing. Not just, a bridge gap there. True healing. It's a big part of that. Hence the issue with the immune system. The immune system, as we go through autophagy, it starts to drop the immune cells. You can look at the ratios of the immune cells, and it's all about efficiency. It's not about volume. It's about efficiency. You lose the poorly functioning immune cells, but you don't lose any of the immune response. It gets more efficient. Really cool. And the part of that is the repair and healing of the body. So here we go. Same slides. Stem cell production. After autophagy, got to have autophagy first to stimulate the need for the stem cells to go where they need to go, like the example of the muscle or the brain here and the healing here. But things that can stop it in its tracks, oxidative stress, bam, makes it really hard to overcome. Toxins of all kinds, pick your toxin, pick your poison, all sorts of them out there. Couch potatoes. Physical activity. The difference in glycogen storing capacity in someone who's sedentary versus a competitive athlete can vary 4,000%. 4,000%. Someone who's not competitive that exercises vigorously regularly can be 2,000%. That's part of what's now being thrown out a lot more. Glycogen flexibility or metabolic flexibility has to do with how you can store in and out in that glycogen. That's a huge part of our reserve and our process to being metabolically fit. Metabolically fit. All right? I thought that was for me. No. And then inflammation, just general chronic inflammation, absolutely makes this process hard. Hard. Okay, so now, whoa. All right, preparing to fast. What do we do to prepare to fast? This is what I do. I have people decrease fiber. Fiber is an irritant. When I don't do that, when they start to fast, they get some weird stuff going on. Fiber expands. Our intestines, small intestines don't. There's a lot of issues with that. So I decrease fiber as they lead into a fast. They don't have to avoid it completely, but I want insoluble fiber. I want them to don't go out of your way to get it. And if you're on a supplement, knock it off, right? Increase salt, sea salt, well before. A lot of the symptoms and side effects we see with fasting is really an electrolyte issue, so you get them cranking up on that. Apple cider vinegar really helps with that stomach acid issue that we talked about, to take a break off the enzymes and help the process along. And plus, it has been shown to affect insulin and blood glucose better than metformin. So I like that. Meal frequency, we've hit on that. When do you eat? How do you eat? We start with people with 3 meals a day, no snacking. Then we go to intermittent fasting, or basically skipping breakfast and so on, and go. Meal timing, when do you eat? I'll show you that in a second. And then meal structure. This is for meal structure. Start them off on 3 meals a day, but eventually as they get past the hump, what we do is we do the pyramid method. This right here is what the average American eats, right? If they even eat breakfast, lunch, and then a huge dinner. Just flip that over. Same numbers. 50% of their caloric intake for breakfast. Leave 35% for lunch, and then 15% for dinner. That's how we start to stack it. Because really, if you want to look at the studies on intermittent fasting and the metabolic effect, it has a better metabolic effect if you skip dinner than if you skip breakfast. But that's socially hard, right? People don't like that. When I did my 30-day fast, I would make some broth so I could sit there with my family and not stare at them eating or them stare at me not eating. Right? So I sip it like pho or something, pretend. It was good. But that was the social part, right? So you do this meal structure. Exercise while fasting. How many people here, you have to take a break. You have to relax. And I think that might be true if you start someone too soon, or just say, well, if someone gets on Facebook, I'm going to do a 7-day fast. Who's with me? And all these sick people jump in, and you see all these comments of just misery. Misery. Oh, I feel like crap. It must be working. Right? No, and you can exercise while fasting. But we do recommend, if you're going to exercise while fasting, don't start when you start fasting. You better already be exercising. Don't change the routine. Move right into it, okay? Before you fast. HIIT training and weights, they're good, like I said, depending on how long you're going to go and if you're metabolically fit and ready to do it. Don't do it your first fast. But if you're not, I'll show you how we do it with athletes to create an anabolic rebound, we call it. Stress relief cardio, that's basic yoga, walking, easy stuff like that. Totally fine once they're ready. Exercise and prolonged fasting, I touched on that, how my 30-day went. And then I'll go into the anabolic rebound in a sec. Okay, breaking the fast. Get that question? What do I eat when I break the fast? You know what I ate when I broke my 30 days? I had a chicken wing party. I love chicken wings. They're great. It was fun. It was no problem, except for one thing I'll go into in a second. Okay, when do I broke the fast? AM versus PM. What's better? AM. Just metabolically, it has better statistics. Low fiber. People say, I'm gonna give my digestive tract a break when I come off the fast. I'm a big salad. That's the hardest thing on your digestive tract. That's the highest residue foods. It stays in your system the longest. That's why it's called insoluble fiber. That's why corn goes right through. You can't break it down. So it can be very irritating for people. Fermented foods less, but you only need a little bit, not a bowl of it, right? Made that mistake. Go ahead, eat some fermented foods. No problem. I had a whole thing of kimchi, and they called me up. And they let me know. I'm a bad guy for telling them that. Spices and heat. This is what I learned from the chicken wings. If you come off a fast, you are sensitive. Watch the spices. Watch the heat, or you will not be happy. Not be happy. It's like you never ate them before. You can tolerate them here. Then you get them back returning to 3 meals a day. They might start on, depending on how long the fast was, start on 1 meal a day, maybe go to 2, then go to 3. And then you always want this part of a long-term plan. Long-term plan. I'm going to give you my secrets. Okay, in my program, this is what we do. Right here, 7 days. Okay, as they go through a health recovery plan, we get them working up in 13 weeks to 7 days. Okay, all right? So when they start here, they start with 3 meals a day, right? Then the next week, they skip breakfast Tuesday, Thursday, intermittent fasting. Then the next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then the next week, Tuesday, Thursday, skip breakfast, half-size dinner. The next week, do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then the next week, we do Tuesday, Thursday block, 24-hour fast. You just start to mix in different concepts. Eventually, they do a 3-day fast, then a 5-day, and there's a week in between, and then the 7-day. And I've never had anybody not be able to do it. I had 2 people not want to do it because they were breastfeeding. And I was like, cool, we did shorter fast and still got the benefit, right? They totally did it. Now, granted, just a note for the wise practitioners, I don't tell them about this until they pay. Because then they run away screaming, right? You don't want that. So, make sure you get them on the hook. Because you know what they all say? I can't do that. No way in can I do that. They freak out. They can't even skip meals or snacks, never mind. They can't do it. But you take them over 13 weeks, they can get it. And then at this point, from this side down, this is when I do detox. They're primed. They're going. They got the autophagy muscle. It's easy. Now they can detox, and they run with it. That's just my way of doing it. All right. Okay, prolonged fasting. Okay, prolonged fasting for healing. We talked about the autophagy. A lot of people have talked about it a lot better than I did. I'll go into insulin and vitamin D here in a second. Heart disease. One of the things in the Furman book is they talk about heart disease and how that fasting changes the cardiovascular system. That when some people start to fast, their cholesterol goes sky high. You know what that means? You know where that's from? Clogged arteries breaking up. Doesn't last like that. It doesn't stay. They did stress tests in EKGs and endocardiograms, all sorts of things, and they looked at that, and that's what seems to be going on. So some people's cholesterol doubles. You? Yeah, I won't tell anybody. It was you. Okay. All right. And then so on. Headaches and migraines. Fantastic results with headaches and migraines. Surprisingly, because what do people say? Well, if I don't eat, I get a... Right? Not for long. Really, really good results. And a lot of other things, a lot of digestive issues. Everyone's seen it. You'll hear it from everybody, all different kinds of things for healing. All right, fasting and cancer. Fasting and metabolic issues, I'll say, right? This is where a lot of people focus, especially in our world. Autophagy, cell genesis, it's sexy, it's fun, right? Growing new. I want to talk on the other side. Why does this happen in the first place and what's controlling it? Insulin and vitamin D. This is how it works. Normal cells here, they're nice and round. You know what they're called technically? Round cells. Really complicated, right? They're called round cells. Nice round cells. Look how they're all packed in there. They're all buddy-buddy. They got their neighbor, kumbaya. Everything is cool. All right? This is called contact inhibition, being so close and snuggling up. They can't move too much. They can't get a little squirrely. They hold that one crazy friend in their place when they go out partying, right? No big issues, okay? Now, what starts to happen, though, is they start to lose that contact inhibition. They're held together kind of like Velcro, like stuck together, like those suits where they throw the kids on the wall, like that. They're stuck, right? But that Velcro, the loop and hole, can start to loosen up, and as it does, they lose that contact. Some of those squirrely friends can get some room to play, and they start to grow. They start to spread. That's technically called spreading. Yeah. You can look it up, right? They start to spread because they really, they want to kind of get loose, but they don't want to lose too much contact because that's where they get information in the body from their friends and stuff like that. So they spread just to kind of keep contact, but still be able to do what they want to do. Eventually, that spreading gets too far, and it creates plaquing. And eventually, that plaquing can lead to tumor growth. It starts to get out of control, and it starts to grow, and you get cancer cells, and so on. Okay? What holds those people together, the Velcro, what controls the Velcro and the tightness of those connections are two things. Vitamin D is the super hormone, the first hormone on the planet, the mother hormone, and mTOR. Okay? Vitamin D helps it loosen up. You got low vitamin D, you got loosey-goosey cells. mTOR's on the scene. It's stimulating growth. Add insulin in there, and he starts to go off. Right? Still with me? Yeah? Questions on that? Big connection there. And I'll go into it later, but I'll tell you right now, if you want one test to know if someone's insulin resistant, they're on that spectrum, they're going down this path, just test their vitamin D. How many people live in a sunshine state? Yeah? How many people have clients who have tons of sunshine but still have low vitamin D? Oh, same hands. How many people like me live in the Pacific Northwest who have some really health-conscious people taking 10,000, 15,000 units of vitamin D a day, and yet their vitamin D number is low? Why? Something's holding it down, holding that vitamin D head underwater. You know what it is? My favorite answer? Insulin. Insulin. So if you just want one thing, that's it. All right, muscle growth and quality. We hear this all the time. We want muscle growth and quality. We want it for child development and maturation. We want it for lean body mass and strength. We want it for protein synthesis and muscle growth. We want it for muscle preservation and functional strength. And that all comes from mTOR. mTOR is not bad. It's like insulin's not bad. But when we totally trigger it to go out of control constantly, it's supposed to be pulsatile. A little bit of growth, a whole lot of repair. A little bit of growth, a whole lot of repair. We got it backwards. With our food and our diet and our lifestyle, we are slamming both of those constantly. And we make a good friend a bad friend, an enemy. Okay, so they're not inherently bad. We have just whipped them into that. So it's associated with all of those, but too much of it creates reactive oxygen species, which is part of what lowers autophagy, oxidation, aging, chronic disease, and something else. Okay? And that goes back to with vitamin D, the last slide. And they're kissing buddies because they work together. They're very similar. They're on the same team. And they piggyback. They magnify each other. Okay. All right, let's get on to ketone and supplement use. All right, ketones. Should we use them or not? Oh, what are you looking at me for? You're the doctors. How about supplement while fasting? Should we supplement when we fast? How about should we have supplements to prepare for a fast? Should we supplement during a fast? You know the difference between supplementing while fasting and during a fast? Well, the difference here is nothing because I made a mistake. They're the same thing. Sorry. Sorry. Didn't mean to throw you off there. So just one of those you can take out. Okay, and then post-fast supplement. Once they're done with a fast, is it a good idea to supplement? Yes. What do you say? Yeah? Okay. It must be true. Metabolic rebound, I'll talk about that. And food and drink support while fasting. Should they do specialty foods? Drinks? What can I drink while fasting? Coffee? Can I have my coffee? If you tell me I can't have my coffee, I'm out of here. That's what they say, right? You talk about messing with their coffee or their alcohol, man, you're in trouble. You're in trouble, right? Unless I have maybe I'm attracting different people than you guys. I don't know. Well, let's take a look. Ketones. I think there is a role for ketones. A few years ago, I put out a video that's gotten over 25,000 views from practitioners basically condemning exogenous ketones, ketone products. Why? Because at that time, if you remember, certain brands came out and it hit your Facebook feed. And if you're a practitioner, every one of your friends said, have you had your ketones today? Who on this field hasn't heard of da-da-da-da? Right? It was all over the place. And they were saying things like, you can have your hamburger, then drink your ketones, and you're back in ketosis. Da-da-da-da. My numbers went up within an hour after drinking my ketones. No kidding. I drink a shot of vodka. Guess what goes up in my blood? My alcohol. I'm not in alcoholosis. Seriously. Really, really bright here. That's why. Sorry, that really I pissed me off. So I put that video out, and I got a lot of hate mail from that. Some of the multi-levels did not like me. But the key is, if you're making this part of a plan, if you have an objective, if you're monitoring this, and you know their history, you know what they're doing, you know what they're willing to do, then I think there's a place for ketones at times to prime the pump, to help some stalls, but not like. Take your ketones every day, no matter what, and sign up your friends. Killing me. Seriously, because you know what's really abnormal, has never existed on this planet metabolically? High ketones and high insulin. Doesn't exist. Can't exist. It's impossible, but we can create it now. Right? And I think that has a potential for problems. If you want to know more, you can look at my video. But I think there's a role. And I think the products that we see here are a perfect opportunity to do that. And they're better than what I've seen out there by far. Okay? I'm buying some. And then preparing for the fast with supplements. I do. I prepare, especially for the oxidative stress. I want to downregulate the brain. I use Epic Minerals, just with like the salts. I want to get their minerals up. Most people are mineral deficient, salt deficient, right? Sinulin, because guess what's going to happen to their insulin when they start fasting? It's going to plummet. And they're going to lose water like we talked about. You know, when I get the funny, Dr. Pompa mentioned when they was doing the killer cell and how we go in the bathroom a lot. Usually it's the men that call me. They say, Doc, you know, I started fasting. I'm doing pretty good. And something changed. I'm going to the bathroom and I notice, I said, cloudy urine. Like, yeah, maybe a little bit of irritation. Yeah, that's part of the cleansing stuff going on. This is normal, relax. They're like, oh, man. You know, I don't know what they've been doing and thinking, but, you know, it's not what they think. So Sinulin can help with that because as you drop the insulin, you drop minerals, you drop water, and so on. Supplements while fasting, I like them. I'm a simple guy. I like the numbers. The yellow ones back there, the numbers, activator, builder, restore, depending on because you know the person's history. You know what they're working on. Those are basic, those work on the whole body. Those, you know, I don't want to just restore their kidney or liver. I want to get that action going. That's so I like to. I did that when I was fasting. I'd even open them up and put them in my tea or my bone broth. But, you know, after 7 days, I couldn't do coffee. Couldn't even smell it. After 12 to 14 days, any broth is out. You know, and then it's easy for water. Because remember, I didn't plan on doing all those days, and that's what we see now over and over. So I use the numbers. Okay. Post-fast, ENRG. You just cranked up that mitochondrial action. I want to give them some support. I want a probiotic, MBC, and I keep on the Sinulin because you're starting to introduce things that they're going to bring insulin back. Sinulin's for insulin. So that's mitochondrial support, a probiotic, insulin. And here's the metabolic rebound. We learned back when I was working with the Olympic athletes in Costa Rica and then the power lifters, who, by the way, they don't get 1 gram of protein per pound of weight. They do 2. 500, 600. That's hard to do, but they'll do it, you know, because they equate. That's why the strongest lifters out there are 450 pounds and not a healthy 450 pounds at any cost. It's a psychosis, but anyway. You know, and I've gotten caught up in it, and, you know, not anymore, though. Not that much. Okay, and so here, metabolic rebound. I get them fasting for 5 days. They're already working out. They've already worked up to that. Now we get them fasting, and they keep lifting hard, heavy through those days. And then when they end it, they go to 3 meals a day, and we go on real whole foods, clean foods, good proteins, and we give them the ENRG, Aventin, Sinulin that helps. Man, that lean feeling, they pop. You can see it. The veins will pop. They'll just get an anabolic surge. And they keep working out, of course. It's a really good thing. And again, it's once in a while. You can't do that every week. But we call it the anabolic rebound. We tested it with systemic products, I guess about 4 years ago with Ion, right? And they were all competitive athletes, marathon runners, CrossFit, lifters, and so on. And I think it was 6 of them. And they all had positive results. They all liked the rebound. They all liked the energy. They didn't all notice it while they were on it, but as soon as they stopped it, they noticed it. Like, whoa. What happened? That happens. And the athletes are pretty attuned to that thing. Then food or drink support. Glow 15 from Naomi Whittle. Have you guys heard? You seen the real Skinny on Fat docuseries? She did that. That's her. She wrote a book, Glow 15. It's for women, but I think everyone should read it because it's universal for this kind of stuff. And she has an Ataffa tea. It's a couple different teas mixed together. Ataffa tea, green tea, and like a fermented black tea, I think it is, and then something else. It's very simple, and you can buy it. You don't buy it from her. You just buy the products. So you can use that while fasting, and it promotes autophagy. Ataffa tea. I think that's cute, right? Ataffa tea. She's smart. And then the keto drink, the meal replacement that Dr. Pompa was talking about. That's a good option, especially post if they want. I'd rather them take a 500 calorie day than break a fast, right? And so I think that's a good option. And then post. Fast, if they can't tolerate stuff, a lot of times they can't do a whole lot, and they want to go liquid or they want to go juice. I go, no. This is what I would use. I use the product we just saw. All right, lifestyle and fasting. You guys get questions about sleep? If you fast enough people through long fasts, and again, I only go to 7 days. I've taken about 8 people through 30-day fasts, and we try to document it. Sleep while fasting. Normally what we see is around day 3 or 4, the sleep gets messed up. Sometimes longer. They can't sleep. I'm a napper. I couldn't even nap. That pissed me off. I like my naps. right? And so that gets messed up. But it only lasts like a day or so. Then they go right back to it. And so that day is usually a down day. They still can't sleep. Nothing worse than fatigue and not being able to sleep. But it doesn't. A lot of people will stop a fast because of that. But it doesn't last long. But it happens almost every time. Exercise, we went over exercise. I recommend it. Even if they're not exercising, go out and do walks. I recommend people do 5 to 8 walks a day that last 5 to 8 minutes. That's it. And no, one 40-minute walk doesn't count as all of them. They're separate, different times. No hands in pockets, no sunglasses, no headphones, no talking on the phone. You can walk your dog, you can talk to your dog, but not on your phone. Don't call your dog, okay? Heat and temperature acclimation, be careful with that. It's a great thing. If you're advanced, you can do it. Man, like Dr. Pomp, I get obsessed with that. I passed out at a Gold's Gym doing that. Waking up, that was a real funny feeling. Waking up, I didn't know where I was. I look over, and there's half-naked people in a hot tub. And I'm going, where am I? You know? And the guy's going, you okay, man? Do we have to call an ambulance? I'm like, oh, okay. No, I'm good. No, we're going to get someone. You got to get checked out. I said, I'm a physician. I'm good. Give me some water. Fine. Yeah, I was doing, this was like my 3rd round, and I had been fasting for 2 days, and I was still doing it, high-intensity training, and I went to get out of the hot tub, and I went to get my towel. Right down. I've also done too much infrared stuff. I got an infrared box sauna, and I got some external heaters, and I put them in there thinking more is better. I took my calls in the box. 2.5 hours later, I'm dry heaving in my bathroom. Blah! Don't do that. I know there's a good role for it, but I haven't figured it out yet. Just don't do it my way. Chiropractic and body work, fantastic. You want to do, every weight loss program needs to be adjusted and need to get a massage at least once a week. Not for beating up scar tissue, but for relaxation. Dropping that, upping the oxytocin. Oxytocin kills cortisol. It's the most underrated hormone out there. Oxytocin, bonding, give someone compliments, hug your wife and kids, or pet your dog. It's all the same thing. Give a compliment whether you mean it or not. You both get a rush of oxytocin. I can tell you have the most beautiful hairdo today. You just got oxytocin, so did I, even though I lied. You don't. Just because there's no hair. I like the head, just because there's no hair, right? Long-term plan. This all has to be a part of a long-term plan. You got to know their history. You got to know what's going on, and you got to be in contact with them. And then insulin resistance versus detox. This is my insulin resistance side. This is my detox side for me. That's how I do it. Okay? Because once I get here, man, now all I do is I flip this over. So after 7 days, then they go to the 5-day off week, 3-day off week, and I go right the same thing backwards. So much easier on that side. Now, if I push a detox, man, it's good, and they can tolerate it, and it's great. And then the meta-oxys change, and heavy metals, all the stuff we expect. All right, fasting side effects. I guess I left them out. You know what they say. Energy. My energy is going to plummet, right? I know my slides. No, that's not it. Yeah, thank you, though. Fasting side effects. Oh, I'm not going to have any energy. Only if you rush into it and you do it wrong. Oh, I get the shakes. So do alcoholics if they don't have drinks. That's withdrawal. Carb addiction is a real thing. Carb addiction is a real thing. Sugar is often worse than drugs because it hits your brain for dopamine and hits your body for serotonin. Dopamine makes you feel good. Body serotonin makes you relax. That's what you ever see Snickers commercials? Snickers satisfies. You're just not yourself when you're hangry, right? Joe Pesci eats a Snicker. He's a nice little 17-year-old again, right? Ever have that happen? Get nice and hangry and ugly in one bite? It's not even halfway down your throat, and you're just like, whoo. That food, not Snickers for you guys. That, I don't know, Fat Bomb? Trail mix? I don't know. That food is not even in your stomach, never mind your intestines, never mind your blood, never mind in your cells to calm you down. What's going on? No, the dopamine's already getting hit, so you're getting happy. You're feeling pleasure. But the incretin effect in your gut, which is what stimulates 70% of insulin, is already started. And in your cells that hold insulin also holds your body serotonin. So as soon as that insulin comes out, so does the serotonin. It doesn't go to your brain because it doesn't pass the blood-brain barrier, and it relaxes your body. So you just got happy and relaxed. And that food's not even in your stomach. That's how that happens. Food addiction, big deal. Big deal. Don't underestimate it. Okay. Where are we? What other side effects? A lot of them come down to electrolytes. So if you prep them well for a week or two, and I tell them, get sea salt, throw it on all your food as much as you can without it tasting bad. Go to town. Go to town. The Salt Fix is a book. If you don't believe me and you think it's bad, The Salt Fix. That guy's got like 25 years PhD in salt. Literally. Amazing book, right? All about that. We are salt deficient. Salt deficient. Get them getting salt. They get woozy or they get lightheaded. Again, we're talking about, it's not hypoglycemia. When you measure them, they're not dropping down into the 50s. You know, they might not even change. It might even go up. It's a sensation. Remember, medical hypoglycemia most of the time is diagnosed by a sensation, by a symptom, not by a number. They don't even test it, right? Okay? So those are some of the side effects. You see, what other side effects? Any other side effects you guys hear about that I didn't hit on? Those are the big ones, right? Huh? What? Fatigue. They're usually not prepped. They're not ready for it. They get a big fatigue. Again, on that 4th or 5th day when they kind of lull and they have to sleep, that's different. That's kind of like a metabolic shift going on, I think. But I'm talking if they just start it and they just feel like crap, then they're just not doing it right. Okay. That's what happened to me in the hot tub. It's an orthostatic issue. So that's a good point. Yeah, you can have it from fasting. All right. So when they're fasting, and Joe Furman talks about this in his book a lot, you know their history, you know their susceptibility. If you think it's even close, you tell them, take it easy, getting up and in and out of a chair. You know, if you need to, put your hand down, or getting in and out of bed, or stuff like that, because it's the change. It's that orthostatic shift that gets magnified, and that quick drop is what made me. I was in a hot tub in the ground at the thing, and I got up out of it, and I went to reach, just too fast. Now I get out and sit on the step, stand up and hold the bar. And I'm like, everyone's looking at me. I'm like, I'm cool. Because I don't want to do that again. They're going to think they're going to put me on the red list or something. They're going to let me back into Gold's Gym. Because I love Gold's Gym because I can work out, take a cold shower, then I hit the whirlpool, take a cold shower, then I hit the steam room, take a cold shower, then I hit the sauna, take a cold shower, then I pass out. Don't do that. Or if you do it, don't call me. All right, early warning signs, insulin resistance. We talked about these issues. Pre-diabetes, anything over 86, because that's when the cardiometabolic markers start to go up. So pre-diabetes, we mentioned these numbers, pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Metabolic syndrome, we talked about that definition. Keep that in mind. Remember, just high blood sugar alone is up here. Anything over 100, really anything over 90 on your triglycerides, you know there's an insulin issue. Insulin regulates triglycerides, and so on. Waist circumference. It's not all about weight. It's about waist. Okay, low vitamin D. Those are the numbers. Medically low is under 25, but that's critical in my mind. Critical. Functionally low. Functional is over 40, but I still consider that functionally low. Healthy is considered over 60, but there's no top end. I was at a seminar and asking practitioners who do this a lot, what's the highest number they've seen? And one guy had 212. Another one had 192 on the vitamin D. No toxicity, right? So don't worry. Higher, the better. With me? Okay. Subjective finding. If they're really tired after eating, insulin. Lightheaded after eating carbs. Sometimes they get lightheaded. Sometimes they almost get like a euphoric. They eat some carbs, and like 10 minutes later, they're just like, whew, that's a pancreas problem. You got an issue there, okay? Nausea after eating. Assuming there's not something secondary going on, you've ruled out other stuff, that can be an indicator as well. Cholesterol goes up during fasting, like we said. That means that they have cholesterol in other parts of their body that's being broke down, and so it's going up in the blood, which means if it's got cholesterol in other parts of the body, it's been there a long time, which is an insulin issue. Fasting blood sugar does not go down. Normally people fast, it starts to go down. Sometimes, advanced fasters, it can go up before it goes down, but someone just starting, it doesn't go down. You can think about, there's an insulin issue. So people will come in and say, I started this intermittent fasting thing, but my blood sugar didn't change. Bigger problem. That's all. Okay, phase 2 insulin response. I ran out of time for that. That's Dr. Kraft, if you want to look that up. And here's a solution. Here's my solution that we use in our programs. We use this version light for the population health. Because I never got to see them. They were all distance. This was Mary eating Funyuns and Mountain Dew. But you get someone sitting across from you or even on the phone who's into it, who wants it. You can push all of these buttons. Insulin-friendly diet, high fat, high good fat. Moderate protein. Most people, it's under 70 grams a day as a finite, not as a percentage. Low carbs, no processed carbs. Processed foods stimulate insulin because they're processed. It has a different effect on the incretins in your system. 3 meals a day, we went through that. Metabolic exercise, anything that's high intensity. High intensity, because that'll build the glycogen capacity. That'll burn sugar and then eventually burn fat. Stress relief cardio. And then the mind-body, that parasympathetic, that balance within the parasympathetic, the growth and repair. You want paced breathing. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Any kind of medication, mindfulness is a fantastic place to start. Chiropractic or body work, talk therapy, concentration training, journaling, reframe, anything that will calm the mind, focus the mind, get it down, that'll start to boost that parasympathetic, and then you can really see what's going on with that sympathetic. And then you make your plan. We were going to do one, but I am 5, 4, 3 out of time. Thank you very much.